I'll never forget the first time I played this game, Resident Evil 4. I was a young boy and I did not know anything about Resident Evil games. I literally played this game. It was the first one that I ever played and the first one that I ever beat, and I was automatically hooked to the series, and to this day it's been one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time, and Resident Evil 4 is the absolute best one in my opinion. In this video I'm going to be going over every single thing that I love about it and a couple of things that I don't love about it, but overall this video is definitely to give you guys an idea of why this game means so much to me and why I absolutely love this game. This game is a masterpiece. This game is a 10 out of 10, and even in 2021 I seriously do think that it is worth playing. And I'm going to go over all the reasons why in this video, as along with giving some fair critiques, even though it was hard for me to do. I did give some fair critiques to the game. Not too many things were wrong with it, truthfully speaking. It had so many great things going for it, and honestly, it'll always be one of my favorite games I ever played. So now, I'll let you guys get into the video. This part was actually recorded after I recorded the main video. I just felt like the intro to the video I made didn't really do a good job introducing anything. So this is kind of like the intro that I've made, I guess, to put on top of the actual video. So now, I'll play the rest of the video. So I decided to go back in 2021 and replay Resident Evil 4. Now keep in mind, I'd already played this game years ago, but it's been so long that I genuinely kind of forgot about the game in the sense of what made it so great. And after beating the game Resident Evil Village, or RE8 to some people, whatever you want to call it, it really inspired me to go back and replay the game, and that's kind of what I've been doing this entire week. So I decided that I would review Resident Evil 4 on this channel for you all, because the fact that I've never reviewed Resident Evil 4, and I promise after this video we'll go back to our regular content. I just really went on a little Resident Evil binge, and I think I'm going to keep this series going of reviewing older games that I've either already played or, you know, have not played, but you know what, are part of the Resident Evil series and just part of other gaming series I'm really interested in that are not new games. Because up to this point, I've pretty much only reviewed brand new games on this channel, but that's going to be changing from this point on. So before we actually start the review, I'm going to give you guys all a little backstory on Resident Evil 4. It was developed by Capcom Production Studio 4, published by Capcom. It was a major installment in the Resident Evil series. It was originally released on the GameCube in 2005. I've got this information off of Wikipedia, just to let you guys know where I'm getting my sources from for this information right here. Obviously, it was critically acclaimed and everything else, but under the same token, there's just something amazing about it that very few games, if any at all, have truly replicated, and in my opinion, it is still the greatest action horror experience you can play. And honestly, after playing Resident Evil 8, I went back to this game and I was just like, this is so much better. Like, this is so much better, and it aged like fine wine. I know some of the horror games of the past aged like milk because the fact that, you know, they're not scary, they were never scary, but back then it was kind of cool for what they were. But you know what? A lot of them aged really, really badly. But this is an example of a game that did not age badly whatsoever, and to this day holds up extremely well. And I mean, honestly, even the boss fights, everything about this game is truly absolutely incredible. So basically, if you do not know, yeah, this video is going to contain spoilers. I probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the video, but under the same token, you've now been warned that this video will contain spoilers. I'm not going to spoil too much. I mean, actually, that's a lie. We're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty, but I'll leave out some of the really specific details of it all. But basically, you play as Leon and you go to rescue Ashley, who is the president's daughter. So basically what happens is you go on this whole entire mission, and she's with you a lot of the time. She's also not with you a lot of the time. It goes kind of back and forth. Every time you get used to dealing with her and protecting her from the zombies and these monsters killing her, she all of a sudden disappears for another literally 7 hours, and then you find her again, and it's just like, that's kind of how the whole game runs. You lose her a couple times, you get her back a couple times, and you just kind of keep having to get used to playing as her and Leon, because you go back and forth as Ashley and Leon some portions of the game, and then other portions of the game you actually play as both of them, which is the most common way that it's done. But you know what, sometimes you do have to split them up. Like, there's a certain part of the game, it's actually pretty long, where you just play as Ashley. You're trying to solve puzzles and different things. Really fun part of the game, I gotta say. But overall, I mean, this game is a game that I feel like you have to experience it in order to really understand what's so great about it. Yeah, the art looks cool. Yeah, the box art looks cool. I'm looking at it right now. It still holds up even to this day. But honestly, this is one of those games you seriously got to go ahead and play if you've not played it. If you have any interest in the horror genre, or even the shooter genre, I should say, this is a game you definitely do not want to miss because of the fact that this game truthfully helped redefine the genre and definitely push the genre forward. To this day, a lot of games, even made by Capcom themselves, are influenced by this work. This game is an absolute classic, and I think that's why the Resident Evil 4 remake is taking so long, but I don't even think we need a Resident Evil 4 remake. I'll talk more about that in another video, especially after replaying this. The video won't be too far out, probably a couple weeks or so, but as long as I remember, I'll make a video on why I don't think that we need a Resident Evil 4 remake. But honestly, I played the game on my Switch, and I have to say that when it comes to graphics and frame rate, it ran pretty much perfectly. I had literally, I don't think, a single frame rate drop the entire game that was very noticeable, like at all. Like if it happened, you're not talking very many frames were dropping, because on the performance side of things, it ran really, really well. Like I said, I couldn't really complain. I'm not exactly sure what the resolutions were. You know, I'm not Digital Foundry, but under the same token, it definitely looked good on a handheld. I'm not going to say it looked amazing or incredible, but it looked good enough, you know? I mean, but honestly, this is not a game you play for the graphical impressiveness of it. You play this game because the fact that this game is a literal masterpiece, and even though we're going to talk about some negatives in this video, I just want to make one thing clear. This game is literally incredible, and nothing I'm saying in this video needs to be misconstrued or taken out of context, in the sense of I truly think this is a classic, and it's one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life. It's literally almost a 10 out of 10. Like, seriously, this game is, like, for what it's supposed to be, is literally almost perfect. I'm going to get into an actual, like, rating at the end for the Nintendo Switch version, like, and how it ran and the controls and everything for that. But to be honest with you guys, when it comes to an actual score of the game, like just base the game by itself, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. But at the end of the video, I'm going to go through why I feel differently about the Nintendo Switch version, because the price and different things, I had to knock some different things off. But overall, like I said, this game is an absolute masterpiece, and you cannot take the things I'm saying in this video out of context, because if you do, then you're going to think I'm hating on this game, and in reality, I cannot wait for the Resident Evil 4 remake, even though I think it's completely unnecessary. And I'm going to go into minor details on why I think that, and why I kind of forgot about how great this game is. There's certain parts of the game, which I'm not going to spoil this part because I feel like this is intricate, but there's certain areas in the game that truly the environments are so daunting, and it's like, wow, I mean, this is incredible. The voice acting's another thing I truly, truly love. But back to those areas of the game that are just, I mean, really spooky areas of the game. Not scary, because nothing in this game is really scary, but there's a serious eeriness over a lot of the game, and it really makes for this really interesting way for a game to feel. Actually, I'd say it feels a lot more eerie than something like Resident Evil Village. I'm sorry I keep comparing the two, but I just recently played it, and it's kind of like the closest thing that I could actually, you know, compare it to. But truthfully speaking, overall the game is just great. But now I gotta go into some of the downsides of this game, because obviously no game in this world is perfect. Even Breath of the Wild, probably my favorite game of all time, I can still tell you things I did not like 100% about the game, obviously. But when it comes to a game like this, there was not too many problems. The number one problem I would say is that if you somehow find yourself in an area where you cannot get health or ammo, you have to restart from your last checkpoint, because you can't just like go out a door. Sometimes the doors lock, even when you're not in a boss fight. Sometimes the doors will just lock and you can't go back. So you got to return to a previous checkpoint, get the extra materials that you need to buy from the shop or whatever that you did not get there. Maybe it was ammo, maybe it was health, maybe it was something to heal yourself, you know, maybe it doesn't matter what it was, right? You got to go back and you got to get that. So you have to literally go back to your previous checkpoint, which can put you out another 20 minutes, which is kind of, you know, not exactly ideal. And by not exactly ideal, I mean literally horrible. But the thing is that it's a minor inconvenience, considering it only happened to me twice through the main campaign. The campaign took me 16 hours to beat, which is a positive of the game. The length of the game, I do like games that are longer. I know some people think that the game's too drawn out. I personally really don't. I think that it definitely does not overstay its welcome, and right about the time where it gets to feeling like it's getting too long here and that, you know, you should probably cut it off, it gets cut off. So that's a really nice thing about this game. And another negative I would say is the aiming. Maybe it's just the Nintendo Switch version. I did not play the Wii version with the motion controls. I know everybody swears by that version. So if that's the case, why didn't you bring it over to the Switch version? That's the version I played. Can't remember if I already said that or not, but why wouldn't you bring that over to the Switch version, considering that's the version everybody loves apparently? And I would have loved to have tried it out. Plus it was $10 more in the other consoles. I know they dropped it, but I'm saying originally it was $10 more for literally no benefit besides being able to take it with you, which is a benefit of buying the Switch. We shouldn't be upcharged for games for that too, you know what I'm saying? But the aiming is really, really bad. And truthfully speaking, it took me a long time to get used to it. Inevitably, I had to invert the I guess you'd say like the controls, because I couldn't figure out how to do it without inverted controls. Every single time I played it, it was just horrible. So maybe that's just me, but I had to invert the controls and made it a little better for me. But it did not fix the problem, which is the fact that it definitely is aged in terms of the controls. But I don't think that this game needs a remake necessarily. I just think that it needs some type of a control patch. You know what I'm saying? The controls are really, really bad. I mean, honestly, they're terrible. There's no nice way of putting it. The controls, the game runs pretty decently, but truthfully speaking, the overall the game does not really work that well when it comes to controls. It truly does not. I would say it took me probably a good 2 to 3 hours to get used to the controls. I'm not going to say that, like, it was the entire game I was struggling or anything, like some old games that you do. I definitely did get the muscle memory about 2 to 3 hours in, but it's still something I shouldn't have to do considering the fact that this is a $20 port of a game that came out literally almost 2 decades ago, so there's no excuse for this. They should have updated the controls. Same thing for Nintendo when they bring the 3D All-Stars collection over and they did not update the cameras of those old games. Also, we have the technology to make better cameras and better controls in games, and I just do not see why these game developers that are bringing old games over would not just put the small amount of money into it that it would cost them to make the experience so much better, and they could be way more proud of the game overall if it had better controls. And honestly, I think that they could get a lot more people in the door for this incredible experience, absolutely incredible experience, if they would fix the controls. Yes, I know I said there's other problems with this game, and there is, but truthfully speaking, the controls are the looming problem. If there is one problem that is absolutely the worst of the worst, and like nothing even comes close to it, yes, it's annoying. You sometimes have to go back to get health and ammo if you misjudged how much you would need, but that's partially the player's fault. You know what I'm saying? It is not the player's fault if they actually cannot play the game very well, because the fact that all the boss battles, everything is significantly harder when you cannot even really turn around without it going really, really slow and everything else. It's just a very, very dated control system and truly feels like I'm playing a 20-year-old game. It does not feel new whatsoever, which I don't expect it to feel new, but Capcom, I think you could have done better than this. I think you could have definitely fixed the controls for these modern console iterations. I get it, right? The game came out a long time ago. I don't expect it to be that good when it came out with controls, but now we're in a point now where I think it could definitely be remapped or give us the Wii motion controls. I do like motion controls sometimes in some games. I'm not sure if I'm going to play Skyward Sword with motion controls. I'm going to try both versions and make my decision, but I do like motion controls, and I think it would have been nice to have them as an option at the very least. If we're paying this much for this old of a game, I think that that would definitely be an incentive, because there's a lot of people in this world who are just going to emulate the game. They're not even going to pay you anything, Capcom. So I feel like by offering an incentive, then I feel like you're going to get less people to do that and more people to actually, you know, fork out the $20 to pay for this instead of just doing it illegally. So now I'm going to get into the actual real spoilers of this video. I know I said I wouldn't put too many spoilers in here, but this is definitely spoiler territory, what we're heading into now, like 100%. Like, Ada literally completely traded on Leon at the end there when she held him to gunpoint. That was really surprising to me. And another thing that really surprised me was the ending. I gotta say, right? Like, oh god, the ending, not exactly a big fan of it. Like, the whole game, I thought Leon and Ashley were gonna, like, fall in love or kiss or something at the end of the game, right? And then, literally, he fucking rejects her at the end of the game, right? Like, literally, like, I was so shocked by that ending, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, the fact that that actually happened legitimately surprises me, just because it's like, you know, the whole game, they had such good chemistry, right? And then right at the end, they just completely fuck it up, and literally just, he starts hitting on the lady that he called the entire time. I forget her name. She was the one who literally was, like, I can't remember what she did, but she was like, he kept calling her on that thing. I can't remember what it's called, but that's the lady at the end that he's interested in, and he basically, doesn't like Ashley, I guess, the entire game. I just thought, because, I don't know, it seemed like numerous times he kind of showed interest in her, and then right at the end, I guess they just kind of crushed all of our dreams. But maybe that's my opinion. I think it is kind of a funny ending, but I don't think it's a good ending. I really don't. I think that they could have definitely ended it better than what they did end it like. I wasn't really a fan of that whatsoever. I gotta say that, honestly, I legitimately forgot about that ending until I replayed it, and I was just like, wow, that was absolutely terrible. And I actually forgot that it ended like that. That was absolutely terrible. I mean, they even escaped on a jet ski. The island exploded. I mean, all sorts of stuff happens, right? And then literally, I don't know, right? I don't know. I'm not going to just keep repeating myself, but you guys get the point. Salazar, I guess, I don't know how you say it. He was a pretty decent villain. He was fun to be around. I always thought he was fun. But overall, I did really enjoy the games, but there definitely was some negatives to the experience. You cannot deny that whatsoever. Even if you are an absolute fanboy of this game, you cannot deny that there is some fundamental problems here. But overall, I think that this is an absolute classic, and I'm giving Resident Evil 4, sorry. I've literally reviewed way too many Resident Evil games this week here. I'm giving Resident Evil 4 Nintendo Switch Edition a 9 out of 10, and Resident Evil 4 Overall Edition, like not counting any specific port of the game, just overall, a 10 out of 10. I think that the Nintendo Switch Edition could have been better, especially considering that $30 price that it came out with. I think it should have included motion controls. I think it should have had a better control system there. I think the cameras and all that different thing like that could have been better. But overall, this game is an absolute classic, and this is like one of those games you got to put on your bucket list in life, and you have to play at some point or another. This is not a game that you want to miss out on. This is a game that, truthfully speaking, if I had to pick one game out of the Resident Evil series to tell someone, like, how do they get into Resident Evil? What's a good place to start in this series? If I had to give anyone that advice, I'd legitimately say Resident Evil 4. This game is so incredible, and honestly speaking, is my favorite game in the Resident Evil series and one of my favorite games of all time. I'm actually working on completing all of the Resident Evil games, and I will then make a tier list video of them, comparing them all. But truthfully, like I said, this is by far my favorite one. It doesn't even come close for me. Even though I love some of the other entries in the series, Resident Evil 4 will always hold a special place in my heart as one of the greatest games I've ever played in my entire life. And every single time I replay the game, I legitimately feel the absolute amazingness of it come over me one more time. And it's just like, honestly, there's not going to be too many more games like this ever made. This is one of those once in a decade, once in a, century type experiences that you just don't see all the time. Yes, I know it has problems, but at its core, it's a 10 out of 10 game, and legitimately is one of the most fun games you can play. And if you're stuck in the house right now, you have nothing to do, it's not a very expensive game. I'd give it a go, especially if you're on one of the consoles that are newer. They just ported them all over to all those, not just, but it's all over all those new consoles. You don't even have to get any new hardware to play them. It's not like a Demon's Souls remake where you need a PS5 to play it. You can play it anywhere. It's an old game. Have an absolute blast with it. It's definitely something that you can have a lot of fun with different people with you. I know I played it a couple times with my friends over. It's definitely an exciting game to play with people around. It has an engaging story. It has great characters, great villains, great heroes. Overall, I mean, this game, honestly, I can't even tell you what's so great about it. There's just something so great about it, right? I've made this whole video trying to explain what's so great about it and give you some of the negatives of it, but truthfully, what it comes down to, I think, is the overall eeriness, like I talked about. It really captures that extremely well, especially for the time period when it came out. There was truly nothing like it, and there never will be anything like it again. This is an extremely special game, and it is a downright masterpiece, and I think that you should definitely play it in 2021, and I think that it has not aged bad at all. I think it's definitely something you should give a go this year, and I think that all these years later, it is still definitely held up well and will always be remembered as one of the classics, if not the greatest horror game of all time. It's my number one in the horror genre. I'd love to hear yours. Thank you all for watching my review. Like I said, 10 out of 10, Switch version 9 out of 10. Absolutely incredible game. I've yet to play a horror game like this my entire life. It is the best one I've ever played, and I hope that you guys will either agree with me or let me know down below in the description a different game, in the comment section, a different game that you like better than it. But like I said, that's all I gotta talk about. Thank you so much for watching the video. Jimmy out of here. Seriously though, that ending, they could have done better. If we do get a Resident Evil 4 remake, I hope we expand on the ending to at least, soften the blow just a little bit.